Good morning. I'd like to call to order the June 22nd, 2011 meeting of the Oklahoma City Airport Trust. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of the May 25th, 2011 Oklahoma City Airport Trust meeting.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next on our agenda is the Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I do have a couple of comments this morning. First, I would like to recognize the Airport Department's Finance Division, who was recently awarded a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association, commonly known as GOFA. It's significant because it's our 19th straight year, and it's our first for our new business manager, Kim Camphouse. So thank you, Kim, and for all your staff for another great document. The second comment relates to Atlantic Aviation, which is a fixed base operation which had a grand opening late yesterday afternoon. They're a new fixed base operator on the east side of Will Rogers World Airport and will be a great anchor tenant as the airport develops the east side of the property. It's about a 43,000 square foot facility. The hangar within that 43,000 is almost 28,000. It's very, very large, and it was funded by private capital, $7 million. So look forward to more activity on the east side with that FBO. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mark. Next on the agenda is to approve the Oklahoma City Airport Trust proposed budget for fiscal year 2012, and I think we have a presentation.
We do. Thank you very much, and we will start that directly. I'm pleased to present the Oklahoma City Airport Trust fiscal year 2012 budget. First of all, I want to compare last year's budget with this proposed budget, and you can see our operating budget for this next year is $55,131,000. Capital budget is $45,487,000 for a total budget of $100,618,000. The difference between last year and this year is about $10 million on the capital budget. Last year we had budgeted some expenses for the terminal planning project, expansion project, and also we thought we would be a little bit earlier in our checked baggage inspection system. We are doing the checked baggage inspection system this year. Moving to the sources of funds for the trust, the largest component is comprised of our building rents for facilities such as the terminal building, the cargo building, Federal Transfer Center, and other buildings and hangars at our three airports, a little over $18 million. Landing fees, these are fees that are charged to our airlines and freight carriers, and we charge $2.85 per 1,000 pounds of landed weight. It's based on a cost recovery component based on our airfield cost. The public parking revenues are our public parking for the surface lots and also our garage parking, a little over $9 million. Concessions revenues are comprised of the terminal food and beverage and retail concession and also the rental car concession revenues. Fuel sales, a little over $1.5 million. We charge 8 cents per gallon for any fuel that is retailed on our three airports, and also receive that fuel flowage fee from tenants who have self-fueling privileges. And then other charges are almost $14 million. These are largely maintenance reimbursements. Most of that is Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, ground rentals, and apron fees. Total of charges on this page, $55,133,000. Other revenues, oil and gas, has been pretty consistent. We're budgeting a little over $2.6 million this next year. Our interest is still going down a little bit due to the yields, only $714,000. Passenger facility charges, very important to us, a little over $7 million, as this supplements funding our capital program at Will Rogers World Airport. And a new category, customer facility charges, a little over $1.5 million, and this represents a new charge based on the consolidated rental car facility that the airport will be designing in coming months. We also are always a beneficial each year of several federal and state grants. Next year we are anticipating a little over $18 million two major Transportation Security Administration grants. One is for the checked baggage inspection system. That's worth $22 million over a 2-year period. We're underway and should be finishing up in the next 2 or 3 months with a closed-circuit television project for TSA, and then we have a major FAA project this next year to realign and reconstruct Taxiway H. So total other revenue combined with the first slide that I just showed you, $30,131,000. A couple of other areas, carryover, which is mainly our Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center escrow account, and it also includes prior year revenues that support our capital program, and then revenue bond proceeds of a little over $7.3 million from the projects that we receive, either passenger facility charges or the future customer facility charges. So the carryover, bond proceeds, and $85,264,000 will comprise the trust budget of $100,618,000. On the expenditure side, we had personnel services where we have carved out travel and training of $9,000. Contractual services and fees, a little over $9.7 million. This represents some major contracts we have at the airport for our parking management contract, janitorial, our aircraft rescue and firefighting, as well as supplemental security. We have materials and supplies for $866,000. Our debt service, of course, related to the bonds that we have outstanding that we've gone out and financed facilities. And just note that our junior lien rating, which is the airport overall revenue rating, is an A2. Our senior lien rating for Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center is AA stable, and Moody's has an insurance rating for the airport of AA stable. The airport's cash fund is a separate legal fund, a little over $15,700,000. This pays for the airport's personnel salaries and benefits and other miscellaneous services and supplies commodities. We also have revenues, a little over $3.2 million. We're estimating revenues this next year that will occur in that will be used for future capital expenditures. And then we have our capital outlay, which is pretty significant, $45,487,000, brings the budget balanced at $100,618,000. We want to talk about some completed projects for Will Rogers World Airport, our general aviation airports, and Mike Monroney. This is a project recently completed to remove some underground storage tanks. We had 17 tanks that were of this size. We had 17 tanks total. 15 were of this size, and 2 others were a little smaller for unleaded and diesel fuel. This was our old fuel farm facility. We have built a new one in recent years. It's immediately adjacent, so it was time to remediate this one. Next, we had a significant project where we reconstructed several taxiways on the airfield, a little over $3.3 million. And I want to make a point that anytime we do design work or reconstruction on our taxiways and runways, we always try to redesign to a design group 5, which Design Group 5 is based on approach speed of aircraft and wingspan of aircraft. The intent is to try to design our airfield so in the future we can handle larger aircraft. If you remember the stimulus projects a couple of years ago, we did get a couple of stimulus projects. This is one for Will Rogers to upgrade some taxiway edge lights on various taxiways, a little over $2 million. Oklahoma City was one of 5 cities in the state that got stimulus projects, and in Oklahoma City we got actually 2 stimulus projects, this one for Will Rogers and one for Wiley Post Airport, which was completed last year. We also completed some roadway improvements on a lot of the airport roadways. This one project was specifically for Terminal Drive and Old Meridian. But we did get some great bid prices, and so we took advantage of that and actually paid a few extra roads, so they look very nice now. Other completed projects for Will Rogers, we rejuvenated some asphalt runways and taxiways. We're completing the terminal planning study, installed some utilities, so total cost of completed projects, $8,705,000. For general aviation, we are really close to completing, and it will be this fiscal year, the opposite direction instrument landing system for runway 35 right at Wiley Post Airport. This will provide an all-weather approach landing to the north will be very comparable to the South Instrument Landing System we've had for years, and it's very unusual for a general aviation airport to have two instrument landing systems. It would be a great feather in our cap. One other project was to reconstruct a couple of taxiways and improve some edge lights. Total cost of the projects at Wiley Post, $4.4 million. For Mike Monroney, we have several completed projects, and I want to make a few points about Mike Monroney because I don't think a lot of people know the trust responsibilities. First of all, Mike Monroney is our largest tenant. They lease about 1,000 acres, and Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center is the largest Department of Transportation employer outside of Washington, D.C., has about 7,200 employees and contractors, and it's a total of 128 buildings on the campus over there. The Airport Trust maintains only 31 of those buildings entirely maintained by the trust, but it represents about 60% of the total square footage of all the buildings at Mike Monroney. We maintain 70 acres of parking lots over there, and we have a lot of electrical and gas distribution responsibilities. We're responsible for the entire electric distribution system for the campus, the medium voltage distribution, which is a 13,000 volt system for the campus, and we also operate a medium pressure gas distribution system. The trust is actually registered with the Oklahoma Corporation Commission as a utility, and we have the same requirements for testing and maintenance as Oklahoma Natural Gas. This particular facility was the Air Navigation Facility number 2, a little over $3.4 million. Next is a reconstruction of several parking lots, a little over $1.3 million for the headquarters building, environmental system support building, and also the radar antenna lab. And we did a few other projects, and I think these show the diversity of the projects that we do, such as just elevators, we do roofs, and we do, again, as I said, a lot of electrical work. On the next page, we have even more projects that you see. The radar antenna lab re-roof, again, we maintain 1.5 million square feet of rooftops at Mike Monroney. You see also a major electrical project, and the total cost of all completed projects this last year, $6,569,000. Let's switch back to ongoing projects for Will Rogers World Airport and also Mike Monroney and our GA airports. This is a rehabilitation project for our 5- and 2-story parking garage. It is a structural renovation. It will also encompass a lot of electrical improvements. The land use development strategy that we have been involved with the last 2 or 3 years, we have received the plan. We're finished with that plan, but we are doing some final marketing aspects of that plan, and that's what's being completed here. Just to remind everyone, this is a land development strategy that encompasses development of a mixed-use aviation, non-aviation development on about 1,000 acres on the east side of Will Rogers World Airport. And as I said before, we're involved heavily with our checked baggage inspection system. This is, again, the TSA-funded project, 90% funded by TSA. This allows us to go from an automated single-feed system to an inline redundant system, which complies with the TSA standards. We're also planning to design and construct a consolidated rental car facility to meet the deficient rental car needs for the public. This is a rendering from the planning study that was done last year, and it really just shows what how big this facility can possibly be. This is not the way the facility may or may not end up being, but it's mainly for programming requirements. We're projecting a little over $6.3 million this next year. We're also planning to work with the Utilities Department and the Public Works Department to realign all of Portland Avenue from Southwest 54th Street to Southwest 104th Street to make ready more development on the east side. This is a picture of the old existing Portland Avenue that we will also be repaving in the next few months. A portion of the old Portland will remain for development purposes. We also have a major FAA project this next year. I mentioned Taxiway H. It's realigning some of the taxiway, not all of it, and reconstructing all of it, going from asphalt to concrete, a little over $5 million. Closed-circuit television project I mentioned we were involved with. We're going from about 70 cameras to a little over 300 cameras. We're going to have much better cameras, much better resolution, much better coverage at the airport. It'll be a great benefit. This is a TSA project, which was primarily they were concerned about more coverage in the security checkpoints and the checked baggage area and the baggage makeup area. They recognized in order to do that, we needed to have some extra coverage. So we get some more cameras as a benefit to that. Next page is other ongoing projects for Will Rogers World Airport. So a total of all projects, $30,107,000. For Wiley Post, we have a couple of projects. We're working with the Utilities Department to make improvements to the high-pressure line out of Wiley Post Airport for certain hangars and doing some other miscellaneous airfield and taxi lane work. Total project, $661,000. Out at Clarence E. Page Airport, this next year we'll be doing a lot of work out at Page Airport and reconstructing part of a runway and doing some other rehabilitation work on other runways and taxiways, and then doing some lighting improvements for a total budget next year of $2,159,000. For Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, some significant heating and air system improvements, a little over $7.2 million. Other building improvements, this is a registry building at Mike Monroney that we recently will have plans to do, a little over $1.7 million. And then we have, again, a lot of roofs to maintain. This is an example of a roof replacement project for $1.7 million for total next year. Other projects, miscellaneous paving, again, mentioned that we do a lot of electrical distribution work. Total of all projects for next year, $13,221,000. In summary, you see how the airports break out with their projects for next year for a total of $45,487,000. And then in the table below, you see how that breaks out from the revenue sources. So on the left, we have the FAA Airport Improvement Program and the Transportation Security Administration contributing several $million. Then we have our revenue bond proceeds, tenant maintenance funds. A lot of that is Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, but we also have other tenants that have maintenance responsibilities that they pay into their lease, which we do capital projects with. And then the trust funds, a little over $7.2 million. And you see it balances out at $45,487,000. On the cash fund that I mentioned earlier, the separate legal fund for salaries and supplies and benefits, we break this out by lines of business, and you can see the total cash fund this year is $15,712,000. The major changes to the cash fund this year, $129,000 for increasing insurance and benefits for the existing positions at the airport. We're increasing the equipment maintenance. This is primarily related to our vehicles. We had historically had $400,000 a year for vehicle maintenance, but the cost and the type of vehicles that we're needing to turn over, we're having to increase that to $100,000. We had 2 additional positions that were approved last year that we're holding over into this budget, and also including another one, a property technician for the airport for $192,000. We have some increased fuel cost, and then increased city-provided services for $283,000. Total change this year will be $732,000 from last year. That completes the trust budget presentation, and we request your approval so we can continue to do business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from any of the trustees? We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And it is so approved. Will Rogers World Airport.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you are aware, we have been involved the last couple of years with a terminal expansion plan. And when we finished the last phase 2 renovation, we at the time were out of gates, and so we thought it prudent to go forward and do some planning. Since then, we've had some capacity reductions in the airline industry due to the economy, but we've continued to do our planning because we know that this will turn around. I'd like to ask Rick Johnson with Frankfurt Short Cruiser to come up, who's going to make a couple of introductory comments, and then we have a presentation that we want to show you on the expansion plan. I do apologize a little bit. It's a bit lengthy, but we have to tell a story. Rick.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Rick Johnson. I'm an architect and principal at Frankfurt Short Bruges, Oklahoma City-based firm of architects, engineers, and planners. I would like to take just a second to thank the Trust for entrusting us with this project, with this study. We appreciate the opportunity to work for you. For this project, we were teamed with HOK. HOK is an internationally renowned large firm of architects and planners. They have an international portfolio in the aviation industry and functioned as our subject matter expert for this project. We do have a rather long presentation. We do have pictures, though. It's not all numbers. We have some pictures. So we're going to try to move real quickly and keep you engaged. In order to do that, we broke our presentation into sections, and as our presenters move forward, we'll try to reorient you with these major categories so we can all keep track of where we are. To make our presentation, we have architect Jim Wilson, who is a senior associate with HOK in their aviation and transportation group, and has functioned on our team as our expert in airport planning. We also have architect Byron Morris, who is a project manager with FSB and has been the overall organizer for the entire effort. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Wilson to get us started on the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share this study with you. I am going to try to talk quick and get through this, but as you said, there is quite a bit of information. I wanted to start with just a little bit of background, just so you understand how we got to where we are today. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the terminal as it is. It was planned initially prior to 9/11. 1998, the planning study recommended the terminal configuration as it is today. So construction was started, 9/11 happened, and things had to change as the terminal was under-designed. And so we have some issues that we've found in the facility today that I think if we had designed it before 9/11 had happened, that things would be a little bit different. And that's part of the focus of what we had in this study. Along with the initial study recommendations had a west concourse and an expansion to the terminal building. And so we were looking to develop those plans in a little bit more detail so that we're ready to take the next steps as soon as your demand warrants additional gates or check-in or baggage claim facilities. So just some of the constraints that we have in the facility today. This is the floor plan of the facility right now. So we have in red the security screening checkpoints, yellow are concessions, and kind of the purple magenta is your departure lounges, blue is circulation. So I think you're all familiar with this. So some of the issues that we have today, and just to orient you a little bit, in the upper right-hand corner we have the little floor plan. So some of the things that I talk about, you'll see little arrows or circles or X's that kind of highlight the issues that we have. If you have any questions, I can also point up to the screen. But just for starters, so in the existing west checkpoint, if you're ever out there, you see in the peak periods, the queues of passengers, they really flow out into the check-in lobby. There's just not enough space to really hold the passengers in that queue area. The east checkpoint, it has a lot more available queue, but it's kind of hidden off of the check-in lobby. A lot of passengers don't even know it's really even there, and we see that as a little bit of a challenge. The two screening checkpoints is a little bit efficient for passengers, unsure of which side they need to go to, which one has a shorter line, I want to get through as soon as I can, is one even open, is the other not? So it's difficult for passengers in terms of orientation. It also is a challenge for the TSA. The split operation doesn't work very well for them, and it doesn't meet their current requirements in terms of the advanced imaging technology, improved X-ray equipment for screening passengers' carry-on baggage. We also have a conflict. You have a lot of people in Oklahoma City who come out to the airport and like to see their people greet their passengers as they arrive at the airport. And right now, those passengers are waiting at the same place where the other passengers are coming into the terminal and queuing up to depart the airport. And so we get a conflict of passenger flows and areas for passengers to sit and wait for arriving passengers. We also have a little bit of conflict as passengers are exiting security after they've been screened. You're entering right into the departure lounges for Southwest Airlines and Delta Airlines. And so there's a lot of conflict of passengers there, people trying to put their shoes back on, their coats back on, and then you've got Delta and Southwest trying to board their airplanes. And we have a lot of flow issues as passengers are coming out of security. We also have an issue, it's not a big issue, but it's a potential reduction in revenue of your concessions. Right now, with the 2 checkpoints, as passengers come, if they go off directly to the west checkpoint, or in the future they go directly off to the east checkpoint, they're turning away and they're missing your primary revenue-generating space in the center of the terminal of your airport lounge and your food court. So there's an opportunity, if the flow is improved, to improve some revenue generation for the airport. We also have a deficiency up on the upper level of the third floor space. The airport admin is completely full and doesn't have additional office space for supporting the airport. And then down on the lower level, this is what your checked baggage screening project is addressing. But currently, you have 7 individual airline modules for outbound baggage and for baggage screening. It really is inefficient for screening bags, for making up bags for the airlines, for the TSA. And it doesn't meet the inline baggage screening systems that the TSA has. So this is a project that you have currently underway, under design, and it'll be a very significant improvement. And this was actually one of the first recommendations out of this study that you're moving forward with. Then we also have airport support space for the airport police, other tenants' operations, the military welcome center, concessionaires. There's a lot of small support functions that really don't have the space where they need it to be or how much space they need to have. So our study went through, and like I said, we tried to find the best way that we can optimize these facilities in the long-range development of the airport as the demand needs. And so the recommendations of the 1998 study had some components, like I mentioned. We had a new East Concourse. We had a 3-bay expansion to the terminal building. We also, this is something that we've kind of added in, but central terminal improvements to address some of the deficiencies we see, and then baggage screening improvements. And I'll kind of walk through these in a little bit more detail of how our plan worked to resolve those issues. So the new East Concourse is very straightforward. It's a mirror of the existing West Concourse. It's approximately 9 new gates. And generally what we do at the concourse is not really impacted by how we expand the terminal building or any improvements that we make in the central terminal building. We can implement this as you need new gates. The 3-bay terminal expansion has a little bit more impact with what we do in the central terminal if we wish to make any improvements to the security screening checkpoints or greeter lobbies. The 3-bay expansion gives us an opportunity to expand check-in, gives us an opportunity to expand baggage claim, baggage makeup, and then it also really provides a good opportunity to improve a lot of the tenant support spaces. So an opportunity for a new military welcome center, airport police, getting them where they need more space, airport operations, TSA, airport admin. So the 3-bay expansion does a lot of things to address other issues there. And then the central terminal improvements is really where we want to get into some more of the alternatives. We really spend a lot of effort trying to figure out what's the optimal way that we can address the issues at the security screening checkpoints and the issues with greeters, airport administration offices. And so we have 4 options that I want to walk through that we looked at. We actually started with 5 or 6 options, kind of short-listed ones that didn't really work out so well, and then 4 had some benefit to look in addition to detail and make an ultimate recommendation. So, and then also the baggage screening project, this is the last piece of it, which I mentioned is already under design. So the central terminal options, the first of the central terminal options was trying to, it's not a no-build scenario, but it's trying to keep things as simplistic as possible and stick with the way that the facility operates today. So we kept 2 screening checkpoints. You can see in the red, an east and a west checkpoint. But we reconfigured the checkpoints so that we could get the new TSA configuration, get additional queuing, and make some other improvements in the facility. So this option was about $2.8 million for the central terminal improvements only. This doesn't include the three-bay expansion of the terminal, and it doesn't include the future concourse. It provides a new configuration for the checkpoint, as I mentioned, so the west checkpoint would be configured more like the east checkpoint is today. But they would also be extended a little bit to get the new TSA configuration in with the AITs and better space for divesting and putting your stuff back on when you're all finished. One of the downsides, it does still have two checkpoints, so we still have the issue of one checkpoint or the other being open, so it doesn't work as well for passengers in terms of orientation. It does, however, meet the TSA requirements for the configuration and provides additional queue. The expanded east checkpoint is improved in terms of the AITs and being able to get the TSA configuration. However, we can't fully get the length of the checkpoint that we'd like until we did a three-bay expansion of the building. This does not really provide any benefits for the greeter lobbies, so passengers are still going to be waiting where they are, and they're still going to have a little bit of a conflict of exiting passengers and departing passengers, and passengers waiting. It does eliminate the conflict where the exits from the security checkpoints are no longer going directly into the hold rooms, so we won't have that conflict of passengers waiting in the hold rooms and exiting. However, it does exacerbate the flow of passengers, as now they're even farther away from where your concessions is in the center. So you may have even more passengers that are bypassing that revenue-generating space. And then a big issue here also related to revenue generation is in this option we would lose the CNBC store and the Big 12 store, which are good revenue-generating spaces for the airport today. And in this option, we really don't have a place to replace them. So that's a significant con. And we have the option in the central terminal improvements to do some additional administration space up on the third level if we needed to. It's not in the cost in that current cost estimate. The second option, we kind of took a different approach, was to say, well, how do we really want the facility to operate? If we could have a blank slate and just really get the facility that was optimal, what would we do with it? And so option 2 takes the checkpoint and puts it right in the center of the check-in lobby. Passengers flow out, and we redevelop the existing food court so that when you exit security, it's right in front of you, and all of your passengers are directly exposed to this the revenue-generating space for the airport. This requires the addition of a new bay outside the building. It replaces the lounge with a new food court and along with some other potential retail options. And then it takes the existing checkpoints and reconfigures them into greeter lobbies. So walking through this option a little bit closer look, so it's about $11.6 million. So this is $8.8 million more than option 1, so it's a significant increase in the cost. However, it provides a new central checkpoint right in the middle of the terminal, very easy passenger orientation. Wherever you are checking in, whatever airline you're at, you can very easily see the location of it, know where to go. It really improves the queue at the checkpoint. The queuing in this central checkpoint is more than the queue of both of your checkpoints combined today. So we would not expect that there would be the overflow of passengers from the queue out into the check-in lobby. And this stays within, it doesn't take any more space in the check-in lobby than the existing ticket counters are. So there's still plenty of cross-circulation area also. So the new checkpoint, obviously, when we put it in, we want to meet the needs of the TSA, get the AIT equipment, the X-ray equipment in there, the benefit of the 2 greeter lobbies. So if you imagine where your checkpoint is today on the west side and where the queue is on the east side in the open 2-bay space, that would be reconfigured so that you could have space for passengers to sit and wait for arriving passengers. You could have a coffee shop in there or something that it really gives a much better opportunity for passengers to wait and as they're waiting for arriving. eliminates the conflict of exiting and the departure lounges. As I mentioned, you go directly into a food court, increasing revenue generation opportunities. We don't lose the CNBC store, we don't lose the Big 12 store, but we do lose the lounge, and it's redeveloped into a new food court. We do have some opportunity that we could replace the lounge, but it wouldn't be in the same location with the nice view of the airfield and that sort of thing. And it does require a one-bay expansion to the terminal, which is why the costs of this one is quite a bit more than option 1. Requires the reconfiguration, moving of some of Delta's, Delta and Southwest's loading bridges and their departure lounges. And it requires the relocation of the existing airside restrooms. So restrooms aren't the easiest things to move. You have a lot of plumbing, mechanical systems. So that's also part of the reason that the costs are a little bit higher here. And then we need to move both Southwest and United in the check-in lobby so that we can free up those ticket counters to make room for that checkpoint. With the location of the checkpoint, if you're familiar with the elevator that's in the middle of the check-in lobby, so we have a little bit of a reduction of the cross-circulation space. Well, this checkpoint here is right where that elevator is. So where everybody's coming in to get to the checkpoint is also where we have our least amount of space. So there's a potential there for a little bit of a bottleneck and a congestion point. And then here also in option 2, we have the opportunity on the 3rd level, again, for airport administrative space. So option 2A, we tried to look at option 2 and see if we could get the benefits of option 2, but make it more cost effective for the airport. And so we have a centralized checkpoint, but it's slightly off to the side. We still have the same greeter lobbies, but we don't add the additional bay outside of the terminal. So option 2A, we come down to $3.6 million, which is just under $1 million more than option 1. So quite a bit more cost effective. A new central checkpoint. It's not right in the middle, but it's only a bay or 2 off. It has all of the queuing that we need, so we don't have the overflow. And then it's also slightly offset from the elevator, so we don't have that conflict there. It provides all of the AIT, X-ray equipment for the TSA, new greeter lobbies. These are all very similar to the option 2 development. We don't have the conflict as passengers are exiting security. They're exposed more primarily to the lounge. We don't impact the CNBC or the Big 12 store. We maintain the existing food court, but there is a slight modification that we have to make in terms of reconfiguring where Sonic is and some of the seating. So we take out about a half a bay of the existing food court to reconfigure for the checkpoint. So we do lose a little bit of space there. We have to move the restrooms again in this option. They move into where the Osage room is today. And then the Osage room ultimately can move to where the existing east checkpoint is. Here we maintain Southwest's and Delta's existing departure lounges. We don't have to reconfigure them, move jet bridges, which puts gates out of commission for a little while. We do still have to move Southwest Airlines, but hopefully as we do the inline check baggage screening system right now, we can, as we're phasing that, we can get Southwest where they need to be in the long term so that ultimately if we needed to move forward, we wouldn't have to do any airline relocations. The checkpoint, as I mentioned, it avoids the elevator issues, and we have the option here to do airport administration space up on the 3rd floor. So the final option was we went back and tried to minimize the disruption in the central terminal area, and by actually putting the new checkpoint all in new construction in the 3-bay expansion of the terminal. So in this option, it's significantly more expensive because it requires the 3-bay expansion to be built just to do the checkpoint improvement. So we're at $27.6 million, $24 million more than option 1. The benefit is to try to get the checkpoint, as I said, out of the central terminal area. So it's built in the 3-bay expansion, all appropriate queue, all in new construction. We can do the checkpoint exactly how we want to do the checkpoint. We don't have to worry about any conflicts of columns in existing structures. So there's a lot of benefits there. Meets the TSA requirements. However, there's some significant downsides in terms of the passenger convenience, flow of passengers. If you imagine where Frontier is, where Continental is today, having to walk all the way from the east end of the building, or west end of the building, all the way to the east end, and then go back out to gate 1 or 2, it's very inconvenient for an airport of this size to make your passengers have to flow like that. And so that's a significant con of this option. We do get the benefit of the greeter lobbies. We don't have the conflicts of the passenger flows and the departure lounges. Here, in order to keep that flow of passengers past the revenue generation, we did suggest that we would relocate the existing food court from where it is today to be in the new construction just outside the checkpoint to optimize that flow. We maintain Southwest and Delta's departure lounges. We get the added benefit for the additional expansion of the terminal. We get the added benefit of, on the lower level, we can expand baggage claim, we can expand baggage makeup in this same project, which we don't get the benefit of in any of the other alternatives. And here we can also expand on the third level for airport administration, TSA, airport operations, some of the other functions that we want to try to improve as a part of this development. So there are additional benefits there. Ultimately, when we went back and went through the evaluation process of these options, we really felt that option 2 brought the most benefit to the airport for the least cost. 2A. Option 1, we felt the 2 checkpoints is just not really the best direction in the long term for the airport. Option 2 was too expensive for the minor benefit over option 2A. And option 3, we just felt it didn't bring the customer service that was important to the airport in the city of Oklahoma City. So option 2A was ultimately the direction that we felt brought the most benefit. So real quickly, we're going to continue on and talk a little bit about the cargo building options, and Byron is going to speak to that.
Thanks, Jim. So another portion of this study had to address the existing cargo building and cargo annex that houses a lot of functions. Like Jim talked about, it's not the best place for them to be, such as the Military Welcome Center and concessions, but there's also functions that take place there like belly cargo, the UPS, other potential tenants that need to be in a cargo building. Where's that cargo building going to go? So that was the part of the study that we looked at as well, because in order to construct the new Terminal Bay expansion and East Concourse, you're going to have to demolish the existing cargo building and annex. So we developed 4 different options to look at what would be the best orientation and placement for this cargo building. And you'll notice that they all have the same building shape, and it's pretty much in the same general area, which is just to the north of the existing cargo building and cargo annex. And the differences between them have to do with configuration of ramp and also the orientation of the building itself. Option number 1 has the new cargo building, which is highlighted there in orange, just to the north of the existing facilities, oriented north-south, facing Air Cargo Road, and then we have new paving just on the air side of that to the east that would replace the UPS ramp area that they utilize right now that's going to be going away once the new the new East Concourse is constructed. And the pros of this is that it really gives a nice curb appeal when you're approaching from Air Cargo Road. It'll be very easily identifiable. It does not interfere at all with the post office building and its parking that would be located just to the north of that, which does, there is some involvement in that if you're looking at some of the other options, which we'll get to eventually. It provides a nice contiguous UPS ramp area that they'll be able to utilize. It has the most flexible ramp condition. You can see in the graphic on the upper right-hand corner that we have 2 aircraft shown placed there. UPS could utilize either one of those, and one of the other functions where you'll have aircraft there from time to time is there's a seasonal charter flights for ones who are wanting to go fly away to different college games. That there will be a process through this building. And it's also the least expensive option at $9.4 million. On the negative side of things, and this is true for all four of these, is there's going to be a loss of employee parking because the gray area there that's shown as the new parking lot for this facility is located where the current employee parking is. But there are plans for where this parking can be relocated that's tied in with the new consolidated rental car facility that the airport directors told us about. Also, in order for this to happen, you first have to relocate airport operations out of the cargo annex building because the footprint of that building overlaps with this one. So that would have to take place first and that building demolished before you could do any of this construction here. And that's not true for all of the options. Also, the new ramp space that UPS would have would be somewhat smaller than what they currently have. And there's an existing oil well that the way this building would be placed would be just on the east side of that. So there's somewhat of an awkward placement that you're going to have to work around with this option. Because of that oil well placement, we looked at a second option where we oriented the new cargo building east-west and have the parking configured similar to what we had in option number one. And you'll also notice that there is a second structure, very small, that is facing the plane that's over to the right. And that would be where you would have the drop-off and processing of passengers for any seasonal charter flights that took place. So the pro of this, some of the positives is that, once again, you don't have to interfere with the post office building to the north at all. It gets you away from that oil well, so it's not quite as awkward. And it's essentially the same price as option number one, $9.6 million, just slightly more expensive. But again, you do have the loss of the employee parking. You still have to deal with the demolishing of the cargo annex building and relocation of the tenants in there before you can proceed with any of this. The UPS ramp space here, it doesn't work quite as well for them. Their ramp space isn't contiguous. And as you can see, you only have one airplane station that can really get direct adjacency to the building. So in order to accommodate the seasonal charter flights, you have this second structure. That's why you're going to have two buildings being constructed at the same time, and it'll be a little bit more expensive than option one. Option number three, the idea was thought, well, the current post office building, they occupy the entire building, but about two-thirds of it currently isn't being utilized by them. And so the idea was, well, what if we could rework their lease and take over a lot of that space and then add on to an already existing facility to make up the balance of the new functions that would be taking place inside the cargo building, which, besides belly cargo that already takes place there and UPS, there's a thought that Customs and Border Patrol could also operate and process flights and cargo out of this facility. So it has compared to the first two options, it has a minimal impact on current employee parking, and you can see that the end result of parking, there's quite a lot that's been added. And it utilizes the existing loading docks that are in the post office building that aren't currently in use, but they work perfectly for the functions that will be taking place in the new cargo building. This also can be, for the most part, completely constructed without having to first tear down the cargo annex building, so that you can start the process sooner that way, not being relying on early demolition. And this is the only option that, with the ramp configuration that's shown, comes close to the size that UPS already has, and there's no conflict with the existing oil well. On the flip side, you do have an existing lease with the post office. It's an entity that would have to be coordinated with to see what's going to work for them. It may not even be feasible if you proceeded forward with that. Also, you have the construction complexity that comes inherent any time that you're going to be renovating or adding on to an existing structure that you wouldn't have with either of the other three options. So also with this option, not only are you going to be renovating the post office building itself, but the existing parking lot in its current configuration is not going to work. It's going to have to be torn out and reconfigured. And because of a lot of those items, this is the second most expensive option at $10.2 million. Option 4 took option 3 and took it a step further. Well, what if the the post office found a home somewhere else so that the facility could be completely removed, and then you can construct a brand new cargo building in its place? So it does give you the best overall parking situation in the end. You don't have any conflicts with the oil well. It has a very nice ramp area for the UPS. Just like option number 3, you don't have to have any demolition of existing facilities as far as the cargo annex building before you start this. And going back, the existing air cargo facility that's run by Aeroterm just to the north, you have a nice continuation of that along Air Cargo Road. Kind of almost has a campus feel to it. And then finally, those are the positives. Now on the negatives, once again, you still have to deal with the lease issues and the desires of the post office. So again, it may not work. It also involves the most demolition, as you're going to be ripping up the entire parking lot that currently serves the post office, the current employee parking, and the entire post office building itself. It also adds the most ramp of any of the 4 options. And so all those things contribute to the fact that this is the most expensive option at $10.9 million. So having studied all 4 of those options, it was decided in the end that option number 1 is the one that was the most preferred. Gives you the nice curb appeal. You don't have to deal with any of the issues of the post office building. You only have one structure, so it minimizes the new ramp that you need to dedicate just for seasonal charter flights. It gives you a very flexible ramp configuration. And it's also the least expensive option. So it's nice to have all those positives and still have it be the least expensive option out of the 4. And that's why we feel that it should be recommended over the other 4 options. I'll now turn it back over to Jim as he gives us a summary of our recommendations and phasing.
So you just have to listen to me a little bit longer, and we're almost done. In general, looking at the terminal alternatives, we broke them down into kind of short-term, mid-term, long-term development plans. And so in the short term, the first project, the checked baggage screening system, which is currently under design, so we're moving forward in the right direction. Then also in the shorter term, implement option 2A, the central terminal improvements to get the benefit of the greeter lobby, the passenger flows, the new checkpoint. And then in the midterm, look at the development of the 3-bay expansion for the terminal, as well as some portion of the new east concourse, whether it be 3 gates, 5 gates, something that as you need new gates, you can scale that down to what you need. And then in the long term, you can actually come back and finish out the concourse as your demand for gates increases. So we don't really think that it's necessary when you're looking at the demand at the airport to come in and do this all at once. We want to try to address this in a cost-effective way that's taking care of your most immediate pressing needs in a shorter time frame and deferring the development of the other into future years as demand warrants. So and then just the final thing to talk about is, we look at these plans on paper, just a little bit of a kind of an overview of how we get from here to there, because there are a lot of interim steps in terms of keeping this airport operational, which we all know is important. We can't just shut it down and do this. So how do we actually phase this and not impact the flow of passengers? So just starting with the existing terminal building, the first thing, the inline baggage screening system. So this is all going on primarily back of house. Really the only thing that the passengers are going to see is we're going to have to move the airlines a little bit up in the check-in lobby. Otherwise, it's primarily going to go unnoticed by the passengers. The first step then towards getting the central terminal improvements done is we need to move Southwest Airlines out of the check-in lobby so that we can clear up those check-in counters for redevelopment, and then we have to relocate the restrooms, the airside restrooms, into the Osage room. With that done, that leaves us an empty space that we can then redevelop into our new central screening checkpoint. Then once the new checkpoint is complete, we can then take the existing 2 checkpoints, redevelop them into the, on the west side, the new check-in or greeter lobby, and then on the east side, the new greeter lobby, as well as development of the Osage room. So at the end of of phase 1, if we want to call it that, is the central terminal has been kind of redeveloped to kind of address our short-term needs. Then at that point, as demand warrants a three-bay expansion in the concourse, we can construct a new cargo building, so we can demo the existing cargo building, which gives us the envelope to then do the three-bay expansion and this piece of the concourse as needed. And then finally, when demand warrants, we complete the final concourse. So that concludes our presentation, and any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the trustees at this point?
Can you give me a summary? I missed a summary of the costs for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3.
The only cost estimates we did were for the central terminal improvements at this time, and so we had the option 2A was 3.6.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. I guess then, when we're going to do Phase 1 and how we're going to pay for it. You'll get back to us? Yes, sir. Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, we need a motion to receive. Second. Cast your votes, and we receive the report, and you'll be getting back to us on the details as we go along.
Sure. After the checked baggage inspection system is done, then we would move forward with the central terminal improvements. And again, the projected cost on that was, I think, $3.6 or $3.8 million. And certainly that would probably be done with bonds and PFCs and some airport trust funds.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for an excellent presentation. Moving on now, item 6, Will Rogers World Airport. Several items for us to consider.
Thank you. Item A is to approve the permanent easement for the Utilities Department and the city of a 16-inch water line, which will be west of and parallel to Portland Avenue from Southwest 54th Street to the booster station on Portland Avenue. Item B is approved change order number 1 to reconstruct various roadways and parking facilities at Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, adding $44,550. Item C, approve addendas 1 and 2 for the Hangar 9 parapet repairs project. This is a revised plans and specs for Mike Monroney, accepting the recommendations on the bids opened on June 1, award the contract to Diversified Construction of Oklahoma for $267,677, approving the contract and bonds. Item D, approve the plans and project manual for the Thomas P. Stafford Building Underground Waterproofing Repairs Project, Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, advertising bids to be opened on July the 19th. Item E, approve amendment number 2 to the agreement with Lee Fisher Incorporated to expand Phase 2 of their scope of work, to do a study for alternative recommendations for the airport ground transportation plaza, also to do a feasibility study in relation to anticipated future airport revenue bonds for $209,600. Item F, accept the staff recommendation on the bids received on May 24th for the containment, collection, and disposal. This is the refuse project contract at Will Rogers World Airport. Award the contract to Allied Waste Systems, doing business as Allied Waste Services of Oklahoma City, 3-year period commencing July 16th, and approve the performance bond. That's all items under Will Rogers.
Thank you, Mark. There are 6 items under Will Rogers. What is the trustees' pleasure?
Move the item.
Motion to move items. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And they are so done. Wiley Post Airport and Clarence E. Page.
Under General Aviation, item A is to approve amendment number 1 to the non-federal reimbursable agreement we have with the Federal Aviation Administration to provide oversight, flight procedures, and flight checks for the new instrument landing system to runway 35 right at Wiley Post Airport. B is to approve amendment number 1 to the construction contract to reconstruct taxiway C and C1 and do various lighting improvements, deducting $15,322.13, and accept the completed project for Wiley Post. Item C is approve addenda 1 to the new fuel tank installation and removal project, accept the recommendations for bids opened on May 24th, and accept the alternate, awarding the contract to Downey Contracting in the amount of $927,650, also approving contract and bonds. This is for Clarence E. Page Airport. Item D, concur with the Consultant Review Committee, authorizing negotiation of an agreement with Todd Engineering Incorporated to do a lighting project and other various improvements for an FAA future project at Clarence E. Page Airport. That's all items under general aviation.
There are 4 items under general aviation. Action by the trustees. A motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And they are so done. General.
Thank you. Under general, request that we receive the reports under item A. Item B is to approve the agreement with the City of Oklahoma City to compensate the city for project consultant selection services by the Public Works Department. Item C is amendment number 1 to the construction contract with Asset Group Incorporated. This is the first renewal for their contract for the annual electrical and street lighting repairs and maintenance contract, $200,000 for 1 year. Item D is approving the resolution authorizing the purchase of maintenance services for our elevators and escalators and moving walkways at Wiley Post and Will Rogers World Airport, utilizing city contract with Schindler Elevators for $114,308. Item D is amendment number 1 to the contract with YZER, doing business as Funnel Design Group. They will be doing the creation and the production of some advertising materials and promotion for the United Airlines' new recently announced nonstop service to San Francisco. Item F is approve the cooperative service agreement with the United States Department of Agriculture. This will pay for our full-time wildlife biologists that we have on staff at Will Rogers, but also assist us at Wiley Post and Clarence E. Page airports commencing July the 1st. That's all items under general.
Trustees' pleasure on the general items. A motion is second. Please cast your votes. So done. Lease agreements.
Only 2 lease agreements today. Item A, to approve Supplement 2 with the agreement with Airgas Medical Services. This adjusts the ground rents for their lease at Wiley Post Airport. And B is approve a lease agreement with Air One Flight Academy for their flight training operation for classroom and storage space on the 2nd level of the terminal building at Wiley Post Airport commencing July 1.
Trustees' action on the lease agreements. A motion is second. Please cast your votes. So done. Item 10 is to adopt the requisition resolution dated June 22nd, 2011, to ratify the action of Director of Airports in approving the requisition dated June 22nd, 2011 for payment, and adopt the requisition resolution dated June 22nd, 2011, authorizing payment of requisitions dated June 22nd, 2011. Motion is second. And it is so done. We now come to the point, comments from trustees. Comments from staff. We do have a citizen to be heard, Mr. Don Smith. If he would come forward, please give your name and your address, please, sir, and address your comments to the trustees.
My name is Don Smith. I live at 7000 Landing Road, Oklahoma City. I am a resident of Wood Lake residential area, and we have a lake that is filled with brown water, which we would like not to have. And I will connect that to this organization. I've lived at this area for over 30 years. It's a residential area that has a lake, a greenbelt area, swimming pool, children's playground. And there is an active homeowners association. We take pride in keeping it looking presentable, and we think that helps preserve property values in our area. And the lake was clear until the construction project happened at Wiley Post Airport, which was, I think, approximately summer of 2009. Since that time, and there was a lot of large dirt moving equipment involved, and a lot of loose dirt as a result of that project, much of which washed into our lake. The drain comes from Will Rogers Airport underneath Rockwell and into our lake. I think it has to be considered the cause and the primary source of the accumulation of silt in our lake and the discoloration of the lake. We have 6 drains coming into our lake. 5 come from our residential area, but I think the impact of that is negligible because the runoff comes from hard surface, asphalt streets, and over this 30-year period of time, that has never caused a problem. After the construction at Wiley Post, the problem occurred, and it has not gone away. I have been down to the drain that comes in from Wiley Post when it is raining, and it is a very high level of dark brown. It can come from nowhere else. And I think that the construction either was poorly designed or the design was not followed properly. And I would like some remediation of the problem from this trust because of the problem that has been caused. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Smith. The trustees will take it under advisement, as the administration will.
Sure. I'd just like to make a couple of points. We are aware of the issues that Mr. Smith has been addressing since the summer of 2009. And all throughout the tail end of this construction project, which was the Northside Development Project, is what we're talking about. We encouraged the Wood Lake Homeowners Association, who we've met with periodically throughout this period, to try to facilitate discussions with the association and also with our contractor to make a point that when we do projects, yes, the Airport Trust is paying for the project, but we do also rely heavily on our engineers and our contractors to make sure that those projects are done correctly. We also met with the Department of Environmental Quality, with ODEQ, and stormwater with the City of Oklahoma City, and to the best of our knowledge, everything was constructed accordingly. So we have encouraged discussion. I think, Mr. Smith, you have talked with the contractor at least one time, and I know that they did do some things over there, I think. I don't know what those remedies were, but that's who we typically look for when we have issues like this. And I believe that we also sent a tort claim packet to you or someone with the association. We've talked to 2 different presidents some time back, and to date we have not received anything on that I understand. Is that correct?
I talked with the project manager for T.J. Campbell Construction Company, told him of the problem, and he seemed a little surprised that we had this accumulation of silt, said he would look at it and get back to me. He never got back to me. I called him on 3 different occasions, leaving messages with his voicemail and with his secretary.
Well, I think we can take this and look at it a little bit further, and I have your number, and we can get back with you and certainly try to facilitate more discussion with the contractor.
We can certainly set up a meeting and make sure that we have a meeting with our staff and the contractor there to address that. Right. Can't we, Mr. Denver?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm sure we can facilitate a meeting with our staff and the contractor and with you, and so we'll make sure that we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further, we are